Mr. Speaker, it is an honour to represent beautiful Langley, British Columbia, and also an opportunity to speak briefly on the many strengths of Canada's new Economic Action Plan 2014. I'd like to begin my comments reflecting what I heard from the NDP. I was shocked, maybe I shouldn't, but they don't want us to balance our budget. They want to keep on all the different programs that have reached an end of their life. They want us to continue in deficit spending, and that's not what Canadians want. So, Mr. Speaker, we will continue to work hard creating jobs in an environment where the economy can grow, we create jobs, and we balance the priorities of Canadians. I'd like to highlight the importance of contribution of the natural resources, forestry, and agriculture that they make to the Canadian economy, which is a pillar of our government's Economic Action Plan. These sectors create jobs, prosperity, particularly in the rural communities across Canada. Consider, for example, Canada's natural resources sector. This sector represents 18% of the economy and over half of our exports, and supports 1.8 million jobs directly and indirectly. That's where the money for the programs is coming, a large percentage. Furthermore, it generates over $30 billion annually in revenues to governments, equal to approximately half of all spending in the hospitals in Canada in 2013. There are hundreds of natural resources projects underway or planned in Canada over the next 10 years, representing a total potential investment of, listen, $650 billion. That's huge. A significant element of this economic boost is represented by Canada's unique oil sands industry. This sector is an asset that will increasingly contribute to the prosperity of all Canadians, including the programs that the NDP and the Liberals, the opposition, want, but they don't want to pay for. The oil sands is among the world's largest technological projects, contributing about 275,000 jobs across Canada and $48 billion in GDP, numbers that could grow to an average of 630,000 jobs and a contribution of $113 billion in GDP per year by 2035. That is huge. This is due to an increasing global demand for resources, particularly from the emerging economies. Increasing global demand for resources like our oil, particularly from the emerging economies, will create new economic and job opportunities from which all Canadians will benefit. But Canadians will only reap the benefits that come from our natural resources once investments are made by the private sector to bring these much-needed resources to market. Approval processes can be long and unpredictable. Delays and red tape often plague the projects, which pose a few environmental risks. That is why our government has worked hard since 2006 to streamline and improve the regulatory process while safeguarding and protecting the environment. A modern regulatory system should support progress on economically viable major economic projects and sustain Canada's reputation as an attractive place to invest. And that is why, as part of Canada's Economic Action Plan, we're modernizing the federal regulatory system by establishing clear timelines, reducing duplication and the regulatory burdens, and focusing resources on large projects where the potential environmental impacts are the greatest. That makes sense. For example, we're implementing a system-wide improvements to achieve the goal of one project, one review, within clearly defined time periods. In addition, we've invested $54 million over 2 years to support more effective project approvals through the Major Projects Management Office initiative. In our most recent budget, we announced $28 million over 2 years to the National Energy Board for the comprehensive and timely reviews of applications to support the participant funding program and the eliminated tariffs on mobile offshore drilling units used in offshore oil and gas exploration and development. We also announced an extension of the mineral exploration tax credit until March 31st, 2015. This credit helps the junior exploration companies raise the capital by providing an incentive to individuals who invest in flow-through shares issued to finance the mineral exploration. The credit is in addition to the regular deduction provided for the exploration expenses flowed through from the issuing company. Since 2006, this measure has helped junior mining companies raise over $5 billion for exploration. Promoting the exploration of Canada's rich mineral resources by junior mining companies offers important benefits in terms of job creation and economic development across Canada, including rural and northern communities. Our government has also amended the Coasting Trade Act to improve access to modern, reliable seismic data of offshore resource development. Since 2004, mobile offshore drilling units used in oil and gas exploration and development can be temporarily imported into Canada on a duty-free basis under the Mobile Offshore Drilling Units Remission Order. This remission order was extended in 2009 for another 5 years and is now set to expire in May 2014. Economic Action Plan 2014 proposes to eliminate the 20% most favored nation rate of duty on imported mobile offshore drilling units. This measure will permanently eliminate the disincentive to exploration leading to oil and gas discoveries in offshore Atlantic and Arctic regions and create a level playing field with other major oil and gas countries competing for offshore petroleum industry investment. Offshore oil and gas developments create jobs and support economic growth in Canadian communities. Continued exploration activity is required to bring new projects to communities and to sustain these economic benefits over a long term. But it depends on modern, reliable seismic technology and data. And that's why amending the Act will ensure companies have the information they need to identify potential resource development opportunities. In addition to supporting a responsible resource development, Mr. Chair, we must not forget the important contribution our forestry sector makes to our country. Canada's forestry sector directly employs over 200,000 workers in all regions of the country, including in 200 communities that rely on the sector for at least 50% of their economic base. Our government has helped keep this vital industry strong. The Investments in Forestry Industry Transformation Program, introduced in Budget 2010, has been successful in enabling Canadian forestry companies to lead the world in demonstrating the viability of innovative technologies that improve efficiencies, that reduce environmental impacts, and create high-value products for Canada's world-class forestry resources. Through programs like the IFIT, we've seen an over 1,000% increase in exports to China, which has helped the sector weather the economic downturn in the U.S. Economic Action Plan 2014 builds on this success by providing $90.1 million over 4 years starting in 2014-15 to renew the IFIT program. Our government will continue to work with the forestry sector as it invests in innovative new products and pursues new markets for Canadian forest products. And finally, Mr. Speaker, the last topic I'd like to highlight is our support for the agricultural and agri-food sector. The agricultural and agri-food sector in Canada amounts for over $100 billion in economic activity and provides the employment for over 2.1 million Canadians. Mr. Speaker, Langley is an environmental friendly community, but agriculture is also very important. And I invite all members during the upcoming summertime that they spend some time out in beautiful Langley, British Columbia. And also I encourage all members in this House to support Canada's economic plan. It creates jobs, it creates prosperity, and it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Questions et commentaires? L'honorable député de Beauport-Limoilou.
Oui, merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Écoutez, Monsieur le Président, précédemment, lors de la lecture en deuxième étape de ce projet de loi, j'avais posé une question très, très simple liée à la préoccupation que mes commettants dans Beauport-Limoilou font face, c'est-à-dire un sentiment d'insécurité réel, palpable chez les parents d'élèves du primaire, du secondaire et du collégial. Il y a 4 écoles, écoutez, Monsieur le Président, qui sont réparties le long de la voie ferrée, une voie ferrée quand même très fréquentée, où il se transportent des matières potentiellement dangereuses à partir du port de Québec à destination du reste du Canada, même aux États-Unis. Alors, écoutez, Monsieur le Président, dans le cadre de C-31, il y a des modifications à des articles qui vont amener le cabinet à pouvoir prendre des décisions liées à la sécurité ferroviaire dans le secret le plus total, ce que je n'accepte pas. Alors, je vais demander à mon collègue, comment peut-il accepter ce culte du secret?
The honourable member for Langley.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we all now know, and our hearts go out to the victims, the families of those that lost their life in Quebec through the tragic disaster in Quebec, in the rail disaster. We have a government that's committed to, and a minister that's doing an incredible job on dealing with those important issues. And I'm really shocked again that the NDP's tactic is to delay. Our government wants to take action because we are a government that gets it done. We make sure that the rails are safe for Canadians. And Mr. Speaker, I'd ask the member across the way to work with our government and not to attack and delay, because delay means what Canada needs in safety in our rail system. They're trying to delay that. And that's not what Canadians want, Mr. Speaker.
Questions or comments? Question et commentaire. The honourable member for Winnipeg North.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I hope to be following the member in terms of his speech, but I do have a question because I do plan on spending a little bit of time on it, and that is the issue in terms of the process. You know, the government is very much trying to sneak through the back door of a budget implementation bill serious changes on a wide spectrum of other pieces of legislation that should have been and could have been standalone pieces of legislation. And then they're invoking time allocation onto this very important budget bill, thereby limiting members of Parliament the opportunity to be able to speak to legislation. And I'm wondering if he can explain why it is that this majority Conservative government is using such mechanisms, which I would suggest to you is not only abuses of the rules, but is also not in the best interests of Canadians in terms of the way in which we pass laws.
Honourable member for Langley.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the former Liberal government had a reputation of not getting things done because they would study and study and study. Mr. Speaker, I think of formerly the dirtiest, most contaminated site in Canada was the Sydney tar ponds, and it was studied and studied and studied. Within months of us becoming government in 2006, I had the honor of going there and announcing that we were going to clean that up, and now it's a beautiful park. It's a beautiful site. This is a government that gets things done, and we do not delay like the former Liberal government and the opposition wants us to do. We get it done.
We have time for one more question and response. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Transport.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. A brief question. Obviously, with C-31, the Budget Implementation Act, one of the key items that has been little discussed, I think, in this Parliament so far has been the increase in the cap of the adoption expenses tax credit. In our last budget, we recognized, of course, some 30,000 Canadian children who are adoptable but are not being adopted. I wonder if the member could comment briefly on the importance of not only last budget, where we increased the number of eligible expenses, but now we've actually increased the tax credit itself to cover more of those expenses.
Member for Langley.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank that member for the work that he has done to make sure that this issue is raised. Also being a role model for many Canadians and his love for children and having a big heart and including adopting. Mr. Speaker, this government is a government that values family, and we've constantly been doing, I said before, that we get it done. By example, we don't just talk the talk, we walk the walk, And there's another example where you've showed in tangible ways how we support families, including adoption. So I would like to thank that member for all the work he's done on that file.